In this video, we're going to be discussing 10 tips, 10 important tips to being safe out there on the trails. You know, it's that time of year, it's cold. A lot of people running solo out on the trails because they can't find other crazy people to run these distances with them in the cold out on the trails. So we're going to discuss some basic overall tips to keep you safe while you're out on the trails. Let's get into it. All right, everybody, my name is John. This is Motivation Theory Running. Look, running on the trails is super fun. If I couldn't run on the trails, I don't know if I would even run. It is the best thing for me. It's my favorite part about running ultramarathons and training for ultramarathons is getting out on the trails, clearing my mind. But there are some safety tips, some safety precautions, some things you need to consider if you're getting into trail running. Most people who run a lot of trails probably understand a lot of this, and it's basic information you should know. But again, depending on where you live, how severe your winters are, the type of terrain, the altitude, how remote your trails are, this could all be changed a little bit to suit where you are. So these are just some basic things you need to consider, especially if you're a new runner and you want to transition into trail running. So whenever possible, you should run with someone else. Again, this depends on where you are. If you're going up in the mountains, it's always good to have at least another person with you just to kind of help you if something were to happen. There are state parks and things like that are not that remote, especially if you have good cell signal and things like that. So you can kind of get away with that. My watch has a great feature to it. I have a Garmin 945. I won't get into a review right now because I'm kind of upset with it right now, but it does have a fantastic feature that has this kind of crash fall feature that I have set off a couple times where I've almost fallen, where I go to hit the ground a little bit and it senses that I've stopped for a little bit. Even if I slip and I stop for a second and kind of compose myself, it'll start to notify my emergency contacts, and I have to stop it. It's happened to me twice, just kind of doing that kind of thing. So that's really cool. That's, if I were to fall, hit my head, and I'm still for a little while, my phone and in conjunction with the app, the Garmin app, will then notify people, send them kind of a location of where I'm at, and get some help to me. Those are the type of things you need to consider when you're going out. So letting someone know where you're going to go, how long you're going to be going, kind of how far you're going to be going, what park, if you can. Again, this all depends on where you are. Number two, I kind of covered, so letting someone know where you're going to be and when you're going to be back. That is a number one way of trying to alert someone. A lot of cave people doing splunking or whatever it's called do that, and that way they know. Because they can't reach out to anybody because of cell phones. It could be like that where you are in the mountains or on trails. It could be remote. You might have really poor signal. So something like the watch is a backup, notifying if you fall. So if you're going on like a 2-hour run and you want there to be at 3 hours to be an emergency call, like if I am not back in 3 hours, something is wrong, to let someone know, especially if you haven't called them to tell them that you're going to be longer. Do something like that. It's just a safe thing to do, and it's a respectful thing to do, especially for those that love you. Number three, know the wildlife concerns, dangers in your area. Again, this is different for all of us. We have bears where I am in Virginia. They're not rampant. We don't see a ton of them, but they do exist. We do have, fox and all kinds of other little animals you need to could be concerned with, snakes and things like that. But just kind of know what type of wildlife and the dangers that they pose to you, because you're out in their territory. They're just doing their thing. They're doing their animal thing. It's not their fault, but they're going to be animals. Know what you need to be concerned about and prepare for it. So snake bite kits, knowing the type of snakes, knowing the type of poisonous snakes that are in your area. Do the best you can to kind of familiarize yourself with what to do in each one of the type of situations if you come into contact with like a black bear or a grizzly bear or brown bear and all the different types of bears and how they react, and snakes, and just little due diligence. Do some research and figure that out in your area. Number four, all right, so I've done search and rescue for many, many years as a volunteer. It's just part of me to always take a first aid kit with you, even if it's a small one. You just never know when you're going to need it. Again, this is part of the research of where you are, what you might want to need to put in yours. Snake bite kit, you just never know. If it's you're in a really snake infested area, it's probably good to have something that can kind of help you in that situation. We don't have that here in Virginia, so I'm not really too concerned about that. But a first aid kit that kind of has some basic things in it to help you if you slip and fall or cut yourself and you need to kind of put a tourniquet on, just anything like that. I mean, I've fallen out there, and you guys have seen me put this B-roll in here, and I'll put it again now, where I was going out onto a rock next to a river, and it was super cold, and I slipped down the face of the rock, landed on a bunch of other rocks on a couple tiers, split my shin open, my elbow, and it was, for the first 5 minutes after it, I didn't think I was going to be able to get myself out under my own power. It was super cold and everything hurt. The shock of the water was dangerous. So had I hit my head, it would have been really, really bad. So just kind of think about it. And this was not, or I was probably a mile and a half from the ranger station. So I wasn't even that far out. I mean, I could have died had I hit my head and just got knocked out and drowned in the water. You don't want to lose your life over just complacency and not thinking anything bad is ever going to happen. Put a first aid kit, even if you don't think you need one. I know a lot of people don't like to carry things on running in the woods, but I always wear a vest usually when I'm running in the woods, especially if I'm running for any amount of distance. I carry some water, first aid kit, just all kinds of little things like that. It's just a safe thing to do. 5, this is probably one of the most important things. Always take your cell phone with you, and especially if you have cell phone signal, always take your cell phone with you. Take it no matter what. It's always just a good practice to take your cell phone with you. You never know what's going to happen, especially now with all these apps that connect to your phone with emergency features. I know we all like, some people want to be, we're purists, I don't want to take my phone, I don't want to be interrupted. Even if you think there will never be a thing that can happen to you, always take your cell phone. Number 6, if you are running in an area that you're not familiar with, always try to familiarize yourself with it. Take a picture of the map, bring a map with you. I usually just take a picture of the map with my phone. That way, if I need to, I can kind of bring the map up. I do that in races. That's probably one of the best things you can do is familiarize yourself as much as you can, just so you don't get lost, especially if you're going on a really long run, and it's just good to make sure that you leave yourself some options to kind of figure it out. I mean, I can bring it up on my watch, and it'll kind of show me the trails and things where I am, but your watch could die, things can happen, you could fall and break your watch, you just never know. You could bring a backup map, and again, this all depends on how long you're running, where you're running. So don't try to say, well, this makes no sense for my situation. Again, I'm trying to be as general as I possibly can to kind of cover as much of the basics for everyone. And if you're in an area that you're not really super familiar with, it's probably not the best time, especially if you're solo, to go exploring down paths and things that you're not sure of where they go or how to get back, especially if you don't have any kind of backup plan or pictures of the trail systems and things like that. It's just not a great thing to do, especially solo. This is a huge pet peeve of mine. So number 7, running with earphones in. I'm not a huge fan of that. You guys know that I don't listen to music when I run. I don't have anything against people who do. On the roads, I think it's dangerous. Sidewalks, worse is inconsiderate for other people who are trying to maneuver around you and you can't hear them. So if you can hear them, that's fine. But the woods, I just think, first off, you should be out there enjoying the woods. Secondly, it just gives you a better awareness of what's going on around you. You don't know, there could be other runners around you. There could be someone that means to do you harm and you are not aware of them. There could be an animal that means to do you harm and you're not aware of them. I think you just need to have all of your senses free and clear to do what they were meant to do, and that is to inform you that something is about to happen to you. So I think running without earphones and listening to music is probably the best thing to do when you're out on trails. All right, number 8, especially this time of year when it's cold, and depending on when you're running, so mornings can be cold, evenings can be cold, all day can be cold, but that can change a lot depending on weather. Always bring a backup layer or shell or something like that to kind of protect you. Rule of thumb is you need to be able to keep yourself warm. I would say, and I know some people say 20 minutes, I say 30 minutes to an hour. I think you should be able to, if you had to stop running, you should be able to keep yourself warm with that backup. Because I just think, again, if you're way, way, way remote or you're up at the top of the mountain and something happens and now you're limping, that was one of the concerns I had when I got hurt. I didn't have any backup with me because I wasn't going to be that far, but it was cold and I was having a really hard time walking. I think the best thing to do is just bring something to kind of help keep you from getting hypothermic, especially if you don't have a way to contact anyone. If you're in really a bad situation where you can't walk or you're significantly slowed down, if you have, say, 6 or 7 miles to get back to your car or back to the trailhead or anything like that, and it's 25 degrees and all you have is a long sleeve technical shirt on, it's going to be dangerous. It's going to be dangerous. So just consider that, that you want to be able to keep yourself warm if you had to stop running and your body temperature starts to drop and your heart rate drops and you can't move as quickly to stay warm. So think about that. And again, it could be a beautiful day. It might be 55 degrees, but if the storm rolls in, you're out there longer than expected, especially if it's in the afternoon. The temperature drops as the sun goes down. I've been at the tops of running up a mountain and it'd be fine at the bottom of the mountain. Then by the time I get to the top, the sun's starting to go down and the temperature drops like 15, 20 degrees. That can be dangerous, so make sure you bring a backup. Number 9, just don't take risks. I know I've kind of talked about that. When you're by yourself, don't do things that, that the risk is way more than the reward for something. I know that, hey, I'm gonna go climb this little rock face here to get a great, Instagram picture, or just go over check things out, or, it could be different things for many of us in our different areas. Like me walking out in the middle of a river when it's freezing and there's ice and it's, sandy, and I have non-grip shoes on. I ran in street shoes, and just doing dumb things out in the middle of the river really could have changed things for me and my family permanently, because I did something stupid that I shouldn't have been doing. I should have thought, what's the dangers I'm going to face? But I got complacent because I'm so used to running that area and I didn't think anything was going to happen, and it was extremely dangerous. So I just say use a lot of precaution and be smart about things. I always tell my kids accidents happen, but usually accidents happen because there's a lack of preparation and considering that the accidents could happen. You can mitigate that. Don't do dumb things when you're out by yourself, and there's no way for anyone to know where you are, especially if you haven't done any of the other things. Be safe out there. Another one for me, especially if you're going on long runs, 3, 4, 5, 6 hours solo on the trails, take more food and a little more water than you're going to think you need. I usually take more food just because I'm a bigger guy, I burn more calories, so I think it's always safe to err on the side of taking a little bit more. That's just the search and rescue guy in me, than you think you're going to need, just because you never know what's going to happen. I know it's a pain, and there are times where I don't always do it, but when I'm prepping, I usually throw a couple extra gels in my vest. That way I don't really think about the weight of it too much. It's not that big of a deal, but I will throw some extra gels, an extra Cliff Bar in the back, just to make sure that I have enough. I do have some water treatment tablets if worse came to worse and I needed to, some iodine pills. If I had to absolutely get water, that I could do that. So I think it's smart just to always prep, always take a little bit more than you think you're going to need. You never know. What if you come across somebody else out there who is hurt and then they need water, or they're in trouble? So just over prepare. It's a good thing. All right, next one. I keep talking about search and rescue, but it would not hurt to become CPR certified, learning the basics of kind of field first aid, just because you never know if you might need to apply it to yourself or someone else. It's just a smart thing to do. Just like if you're watching kids, it's a good thing to have infant CPR. We're always made to get that in search and rescue. It's just part of what we do. I think it's probably good, especially if you're going to be putting yourself in a situation where the odds are increased that something can happen, or the odds are increased that you could come across somebody else who has been hurt. It's not that much time, and it's just it's just something smart to do that that you know what to do if you get put in a situation that having that knowledge is very, very beneficial. So you don't want to be kind of like, wish I knew, but I can't help you. You don't want to ever be there. So just over prepare. It's just one of the things you're going to need to do. As a father, I'm super overprotective when it comes to things, and I'm always talking to my kids about, over preparing, thinking things through, always think about the repercussions, just think things through. You can prevent a lot of things just by a little bit of planning, a little bit of thinking. Odds are things are always going to be okay. Statistically, things are always going to be okay, but when they're not, that's when the problems happen. All right, getting out in nature is a wonderful thing, but it can be dangerous. It can be. Accidents can happen. Things can happen. So if you're a hiker or you're a trail runner or you're wanting to do either one of those activities, it's best just to plan and just try to protect yourself and make sure that if something bad happens, that you are prepared and those that love you know where you are and they're not worried. It's just the best thing to do. Mitigate. That's all you got to do. Keep yourself safe. Keep those around you informed about where you're going. And you get to enjoy a lot of years. You don't want to take something as enjoyable as running and hiking in nature and have an accident and have the worst thing that could ever happen, which would be you losing your life. That's never the intent when we go out to go do things. So prepare and click right here. I have some more tips and tricks when it comes to running and trail running. Go ahead and click there, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.